They were Hollywood's biggest stars, living lives that most of us can only dream of. They had the fame, the fortune, the adoration of millions. But for these celebrities, the applause eventually stopped, the red carpets were rolled up, and the glamour was swapped for the grim reality of prison. The spotlight they chased became an inescapable glare, shattering their perfect public images. So, what happens when a movie set gets traded for a jail cell? Let's go beyond the headlines and find out. Fame can create a powerful illusion that you're untouchable, but the law doesn't care about box office numbers or how many awards you have on your shelf. The stories we're about to dive into are a stark reminder that choices have consequences, no matter who you are. Some of these stars found a path to redemption, while others saw their careers completely destroyed. From shocking acts of violence to unbelievable arrogance, these are the stories of Hollywood stars who traded it all for a life behind bars. Tim Allen, The Secret Past. You probably know him as the tool-loving dad from Home Improvement or the voice of Buzz Lightyear. But long before he was a family-friendly icon, Tim Allen was living a very different, much darker life. Back in 1978, a 25-year-old Allen was arrested at an airport in Michigan. He wasn't just carrying a little for personal use, he was busted with nearly 1.5 pounds of cocaine. Looking at a possible life sentence for drug trafficking, Allen made a choice that changed everything. He pleaded guilty and gave the authorities the names of other dealers. In exchange, instead of life in prison, he was sentenced to just over 2 years in a federal penitentiary. Allen has since talked openly about this time, calling it a watershed moment that put him in a position of great humility. It was a jarring start for a guy who would become one of America's most beloved comedians, and it just goes to show that some of the biggest stars have the most shocking pasts. Wesley Snipes, The Taxman Cometh. In the late 90s, Wesley Snipes was the action hero. As Blade, the half-vampire hunter, he was on top of the world, making huge money for his blockbuster movies. But while he was fighting vampires on screen, he was in a very real fight with the US government. In 2008, Snipes was convicted on 3 counts of willfully failing to file federal income tax returns. We're not talking about a small amount. Prosecutors said he failed to pay taxes on about $38 million in income between 1999 and 2004. Snipes argued he was just misled by tax protesters who convinced him he didn't legally owe anything. The court didn't buy it. Even with character references from friends like Denzel Washington, Snipes got the maximum sentence, 3 years in prison. After a failed appeal, he reported to a federal prison in late 2010 and was released in 2013. It was a huge fall from grace, proving that not even Blade can take down the IRS. Winona Ryder, The Five-Finger Discount. Winona Ryder was the face of a generation, the ultimate 90s cool girl from movies like Beetlejuice and Heathers. She was one of the most celebrated actresses of her time, which is why the world was absolutely floored in 2001 when she was arrested for shoplifting. She was accused of stealing over $5,500 of designer clothes from a Saks Fifth Avenue in Beverly Hills. Security saw her on camera cutting off security tags and stuffing items into her bag. The case immediately turned into a media circus. Ryder was convicted of grand theft and vandalism. She avoided jail time but was sentenced to 3 years of probation, 480 hours of community service, and had to pay over $10,000 in fines. She later opened up that the incident happened during a really tough time in her life. She was struggling with her mental health and was on strong painkillers for a broken arm. The scandal put her career on pause, but she has since made a massive comeback in Stranger Things, proving that a second act is always possible. Mark Wahlberg, A Violent Youth. Today, Mark Wahlberg is a dedicated family man and one of Hollywood's most successful A-list stars. But his teenage years in Boston were filled with violence and hate. As a teen, Mark Wahlberg was involved in several racially motivated attacks. In 1988, when he was 16, he committed 2 brutal assaults on the same day. He attacked a middle-aged Vietnamese man, knocking him out with a wooden stick while yelling racial slurs. Later that day, he punched another Vietnamese man in the face. Because he already had a civil rights injunction against him, the court came down hard. He was charged with attempted murder, but pleaded guilty to felony assault. He was sentenced to 2 years in prison, but ended up serving 45 days. Years later, in 2014, Wahlberg sought a pardon, expressing deep remorse for what he'd done. He later said he regretted even applying for the pardon, realizing he didn't need a piece of paper to prove he'd spent decades trying to right his wrongs. His story is a jarring example of a troubled past that continues to spark debate about forgiveness. Martha Stewart, the domestic diva's downfall. Martha Stewart built a billion-dollar empire on the idea of perfect living. Her name meant impeccable taste in everything, from cooking to decorating. So when she was indicted on federal criminal charges, it was beyond shocking. Her crime wasn't some hidden addiction, it was all about a stock trade. In 2004, Stewart wasn't convicted of insider trading itself, but of conspiracy and lying to federal investigators. The whole case was about her selling stock in a company just one day before its price tanked. Stewart said she had a pre-existing deal to sell the stock if it dropped, but the government argued it was all a cover-up. The jury sided with the prosecution. Martha was sentenced to 5 months in federal prison. She famously declared, "I'll be back," and she wasn't kidding. After her release in 2005, she staged one of the most incredible business comebacks ever, proving that not even a prison sentence could keep her down. Robert Downey Jr., the ultimate comeback. It's hard to imagine it now, but the man who launched the Marvel Cinematic Universe as Iron Man was once Hollywood's most tragic stories. In the late 90s, Robert Downey Jr. was an incredible actor whose career was completely derailed by drug addiction. His legal troubles were constant. Between 1996 and 2001, he was arrested again and again on drug charges, including for heroin and cocaine. He kept violating his probation, which led to multiple stints in jail. It all came to a head in 1999 when a judge, out of options, sentenced him to 3 years in a state prison and substance abuse facility. He served about 15 months before being released. His struggles weren't over, but by 2003, he had fully committed to getting sober. His comeback started slowly, but when he was cast as Tony Stark in 2008's Iron Man, it launched a new chapter that no one could have predicted. His journey from a prison cell to the top of the world is maybe Hollywood's greatest story of redemption. Channing Richardson, the Walking Dead actress, and the Poison Letters. Not every story ends with a comeback. Some are just plain dark. Channing Richardson was a minor actress with small parts in shows like The Walking Dead. But in 2013, she became famous for a crime that targeted the highest levels of the U.S. government. That year, Richardson mailed ricin-laced letters to President Obama and New York City Mayor Michael Bloomberg. Ricin is a deadly poison with no antidote. After mailing the letters, she did something unbelievable. She went to the police and tried to frame her own husband. But investigators quickly found holes in her story. They discovered she had bought all the supplies to make the ricin-ondine and had set up accounts in her husband's name to try and cover her tracks. Faced with the evidence, she pled guilty. A judge sentenced her to the maximum of 18 years in federal prison. It was a terrifying case that turned a little-known actress into a convicted domestic terrorist. It turns out the line between the red carpet and a prison cell is thinner than you'd think. These stories are a wild ride, and they show that no matter how much fame, you can protect you from the law. So, what do you think? Were the punishments fair in these cases? Which story shocked you the most? Let us know down in the comments. And if you found this look into the darker side of fame interesting, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives. Don't forget to ring the bell so you never miss a new video. From inspiring tales of redemption to shocking cautionary tales, the mix of celebrity and crime is always fascinating. These stars hit the highest highs, only to risk it all with the decisions they made when the cameras weren't rolling. Their journeys prove that while Hollywood might be the land of make-believe, the consequences of breaking the law are very, very real. Thanks for watching.